So it's starting to get a little bit better.
Yeah. First day was like.
Okay, so we can keep adding values here, right? Well, look at all our values. You're just right there in the middle.
Why?
That just happens to be how the hash is working out.
How about putting A, B, C, D and try to fill it? Just put one single char and try to fill all the. No, A, B should be also A. You should type B single. Okay, why B? C?
Yeah, I think it's got to be a bunch of those guys.
Still,
That's
not a good hash.
yes.
Here, I'm going to try something here. Let's go back to our code. We'll go to our hash central. Inside here, let's see if Java has a built-in hash that allows us to limit a size. Looks like strings. Wonder how big. Well, it's going to be 32 bits. So let's do another one. Let's call this string hash. Just going to take a string s and an int numbits, and we'll have this guy return s dot hash code left shift or right shift numbits. Let's see if that guy's better. So it looks like in Java, the string class has a hash algorithm built into it. I don't know what hash algorithm it is, but let's see if we use that guy instead of our rot13 hash. Let's call our string hash. Let's see if we get better values. We should still be limiting the output to the right size because we shifted. Oh, possibly not. Because I bet you their string hash truly gives you 32 bits.
So you can print it out and have what is the return?
It returns an int. Yeah, but we went off the end of the array. Yeah, so we got so it's going to give us a 32-bit value. We need to shift it 26? No, 24.
We want 4, so we want to shift 38.
Oh, right. That'll just get us an 8-bit, right? So where's hash central? So we're gonna left shift it 32 minus this. That's what you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
But we actually have to do it for this one. All right, so there's one value there. Still the same value. Elephant.
So it's although it returns the int, but if we shift
32 minus num bits.
by the way, it might actually will it return a negative value,
Shouldn't.
but when at least when I use the murmur hash, it will return negative hash value.
I see what you're saying. So maybe it does.
Yeah, so I would say maybe we either
Take the
we
absolute,
it,
take the
maybe
absolute value.
absolute value. By the way, it's not true if it's negative value, but if we shift 28 bits, but it still should be 0, 0, 0, 0, 4, so it should still be a
Well, unless the negative value then is, I forgot how we're actually getting our index in our array. It's possible that it.
That's fine.
So,
Try anything. Yeah. So, but why is still 0? So it means they're always okay. The first bucket it should be 0, 0, 0, 0, 4, 0. So all this thing is 4, 0.
well, here we're gonna do this real easy.
At least I think my absolute value theory is right.
Yeah. So for our string hash, what we can do is we can say num bits is going to be. Actually, let's call this guy max val, which will be 15. So we're going to say int sum is equal to 0. All right, so we're going to sum up all of the values in the string, the int values in the string, and then we're going to return sum mod max val for our string hash. So now we're going to say the max val is 16.
Yeah.
So that'll give us a number between 0 and 15. So hopefully this gives us a little bit more
Yeah, different.
well-rounded stuff.
That's all called clean vector.
All right, so there's hello, there's world, there's elephant,
Okay, it's 1. Okay, cool.
there's cat, There's dog. Seems to be doing a better job. Okay. It looked like what cat and one of the other ones matched.
Yeah.
But this is doing what it seems like it should be doing for a simple hash.
In a balloon filter.
Okay. So now let's go ahead and let's do a check. As an introduction to this, let's check on another screen. Sound good? So this is the screen for entering in our information. So we're going to now have another screen for checking against our information. Is something in our data set? Okay? And the reason why I'm going to do that is because your homework assignment requires there to be more than one screen. All right, so we'll use this as our example. And then what we'll actually do is I'll actually start your homework assignment for you to give you kind of a starting structure for it, because it'll be easier to kind of explain what I'm asking you to do. It should be actually kind of a cool assignment. So in any case, we're going to go ahead now that we've put some of this stuff in here. In fact, actually, let's go into this guy here. Instead of saying hash, let's say add value. So that button's going to say add value now, right? And then, so this is going to put all of our values down here. So now let's go ahead and let's do a check value. So we're going to have a check value button, and that guy's going to take us to a brand new screen. All right, brand new screen. So I'm going to throw another button in here. I use just a normal button. Is that what I did? Check value, and we're going to call this guy check value. Actually, we don't need to call him anything special. We'll give it a name. We'll call it check value button. Okay, and then let's give both of these guys some gravity. And we're going to center horizontal. Oh, that's not the gravity there. We want the gravity on this view, our relative layout. Oh, yeah, it's going to get kind of funky. Because if I switch this guy to, well, center horizontally, actually, I think should actually work for this. Yeah, relative layout's not really right for that. Well, gravity is in the container that's holding it. So what I can do if I want this to be right is I would throw my linear layout right there. I would squinch it up here. Then I would drop my two buttons into that. Oh, one moment. Here's my linear layout. Let's just put it right there. And then we'll put our hash button in there. And then we're going to put our, where's our other button? Check value button. We'll put that guy in there as well. And then we're going to have our linear layout have a width to fill. And we want it to have a height to wrap content. All right, there's our list. Here's our linear layout. It's horizontal. There we go. Except we've lost our text view. There we go. Now we got it. Then we have this, and then we can, so now I have my linear layout that's horizontal. Now I can set his gravity to be center horizontally.
Okay, understand.
Okay.
So the gravity is put on the field, container.
Correct.
So the container has its gravity, like the Earth has gravity on it.
Correct.
We are on the Earth.
Yep.
We are the element. I always put I put one like a button and I said that gravity, but
The button is your container.
Yeah, I understand.
So what you see move then is the text inside the button.
That is true.
All right. So even though that was a little wonky, what we just did, that was still far easier than it used to be. It used to be a nightmare. Okay, so let's go ahead and give ourselves a check value action callback. That way we can go to a new screen, and we'll learn that first, okay? So we're going to go into our main activity. I'm going to go ahead and close the simple table row thing. We don't need that anymore. We kind of have that working. Okay, so I'm in my main activity Java. And we're going to do a public void, what is it, check value button pressed. This guy will take in a UV as a parameter. And what we're going to do is we want this guy to ultimately go to a new screen, but we're going to have to write the stuff for that. So for right now, I'm going to just copy this so we can go set the on click for that dude. So we'll select our check value. We'll go down to his on click. We'll paste that in there. Okay. So we have that. Now, we want to go ahead and we want to create a new activity. Okay. So we're going to call this guy check value activity. Okay. Because my app's going to have two screens. That means it's going to now have two activities. An activity is a screen. Or you could have the same screen a second time. In fact, actually, let me show you that first. Just so you see what I'm getting at with that guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into main activity. So right now we're going to have check value button pressed, do something. And the reason why I'm going to show it to you this way is because this might come in handy for your homework. Okay, and I'll explain that more as we kind of get to it. But in order to go to another screen, we have to create something called an intent. Okay, we have an intent to go from this screen to another screen. So I'm going to create an intent I is equal to a new intent. All right.
What does the underscore mean? So it needs to input.
Oh, did it not like me? I didn't let me finish it. Okay.
It needs to input.
There we go. Intent I equals a new intent. All right. And then the constructor for this guy is going to take in a is it this guy? I think this is the version we want. We'll be able to pick that intent. Nope. Yeah, it didn't let us pick the right one. But here, let me just look it up real quick. I think you pass it the context and then the destination. So let's see. Android intent. I just want the simple constructors. Take me to the constructors. Since we have all sorts of different kinds of screens we can go to that has a whole bunch of stuff in it, but we're just doing the simple. All right, this guy. Action. Yeah, we give it the context and the class. That's the one I want, this one right here. So we're going to say this comma, and then we're going to say main activity dot class. So we're creating an intent to go from, well, we intend to go from here, our current context, this, to a new destination, which is actually going to be a duplicate of this guy. Okay, not the same screen again. Another screen that looks like this screen. Okay? So that's what we intend to do. And then with intent, we can actually add things called extras. So we could do i.putExtras, and that allows us to inject values into that second thing, but I never use it. I use something called a singleton. I'll show you here in a few minutes because we're going to use it for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this dot, is it launch activity? Start activity? Yep, start activity. You pass it an intent I, and that activity should now start. So now when we hit the check value button, it should take us to a brand new screen that looks identical to the current screen. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that. All right, let's add a couple of values here first. All right, so we have some stuff on the screen. Then I'll do check value. Notice we're on a new screen here. And I'll do blah on this one. We'll do add value, so I only have one thing. But if I hit my physical back button, it takes me to the previous screen that has those things. Make sense? I have two copies. I have main activity exists twice.
So if you push the back button, where is the newer activity?
Oh, he's gone.
Oh, so it's
Yeah, when I hit the back button, I can't go. There's no forward button. Yeah, when you hit back, it pops off that activity and it throws away. Yep, deletes it. Yeah, so if I hit back here, it takes me back to the home screen. And yeah, my app has now ended. Okay. So we see how we can launch another activity. That's going to come in handy what we just did there on your homework assignment, because your homework assignment is to essentially build an application that allows you to create a JSON object. So we know what JSON is with the curly braces, and well, I'll show you an example here when we get to it. But for instance, you can have a JSON object is a bunch of name value pairs, and you can have a JSON object called fraction that has a numerator that is 1 and a denominator that is 2. Okay, but you can have a JSON object that has a value that has another JSON object as its parameter. So if I have the value x, and if I have the variable name x, and I want to set its value to be another JSON object, I would actually launch the same activity again, the one that allows me to build a JSON object. So I'm in the middle of building a JSON object, adding here's a name value pair for a equals 5, b equals 7, c is equal to, and let's say I decide I want my value to be a JSON object. I'm going to launch my activity that knows how to build a JSON object. It's a brand new JSON object, but it's a JSON object nonetheless. Okay? All right. So, in any case, let's go ahead and let's create a second activity here. So, I'll come right here. I'm going to right click. We're going to do new activity. And we'll choose a empty activity, right? And we get to call this, so let's call this guy check value activity. All right, and we can tell them to go ahead and generate a layout file for us. So we'll have a new layout file for this guy. Okay, we only get one launcher activity. That's the activity that when the application first launches, that's the main activity. So we only get one of those. So this guy's not going to be that one. Our one is the one that allows us to enter in the values. Okay, so this guy's just another activity. So don't check that box. All right, we'll go. So we're creating a new activity called check value activity on top of the one we already have, which is called main activity. And he's going to be governed by this layout file. So we'll go ahead and hit finish there. All right, so here's that guy. So here's our check value activity. And notice we have this new activity check value layout. Okay, and there's nothing currently on here, right? So just as a starting point for us, let's go ahead and let's throw some large text out here. Oh, I need to give this guy a theme. Do device default. All right, let's make this span the screen. And we'll have this guy just say check value, like that. So let's just prove that we can get to this screen now, okay? So I'll go ahead and we will go back into our main activity, this guy. And instead of us going to main activity.class, we're actually going to go to check value activity.class. That's where we're going now. We'll tell it to start that activity, go ahead and run that, and then we'll see if we can get to that new screen. And assuming this works fine, this is still way better than it used to be, because you used to have to go in to this, we have a thing called the Android manifest that's inside here, that we used to have to physically add code to that whenever we needed to have new activities and things like that. Yeah, so yeah, this is way better. I'm sure that there are still situations where you have to go into the manifest. Probably for doing some security stuff, allowing us to connect to the internet through the app, and maybe for doing some special things, transitions, that kind of stuff. But at the very least, for writing straightforward applications, this is a huge, huge improvement. Okay, so in any case, now it's taking us to our new activity. Now, the reality is we would probably, well, at the very least, we need to have access to our Bloom filter in that other activity, right? Okay, right now, he only exists as a local variable inside of my main activity. Right, this guy right here. I'm building him in my main activity, but I really need to have access to him across both activities. So I'm going to put him inside of a singleton. All right, so I'm going to create my own. I'm going to create a new class here. And I think that this guy actually has a thing for singletons.
Yes.
Don't use it.
Okay, why?
Okay, their singleton is stupid.
All right.
All right, here, I'll show it to you real quick. Bad singleton. So their singleton, it actually creates a instance of this guy. And then all your variables you would keep in here are would not have to be static. So in order to use your bad singleton, you would say bad singleton dot our instance dot do this stuff. It's done. When our singleton here, we'll keep that one alive for right now. We're not going to use it.
But it's, I think, where the book is a typical singleton structure.
It's a bad singleton structure.
No, I know you say it's bad. As you said, in our book, you said.
Historically, it would probably be considered that's how singletons should work, because the idea was based off of an instance. But why have it return an instance when we can rely on the language itself to manage the variables that are owned by the class? So for us, I'm gonna call this guy what's this guy? Let's call this guy Bloomcore. Okay, we're gonna call this guy Bloomcore. That's gonna be our singleton. He's just gonna be a normal plain Jane Java class. And inside here, I'm gonna say, I'm sorry, we're gonna have a static. What was it? Int array?
Yeah, you're saying that right.
Int array, the Bloom filter, something like that.
Yep.
All right, and then in our main activity, instead of setting our bloom filter here, and actually, I'm not going to set it in either of those places. I'll just set it in here. This guy's going to be a new int array 16, because we're only going to have a single global bloom filter. All right. So that's my bloom filter. It now lives up in Bloom Core. So now I have a bunch of errors in here. So what we'll go ahead and do is, instead of this dot the bloom filter, we're going to have Bloom Core dot the bloom filter. Okay. I'm going to steal that because all the other places we use that guy. All right, so I just positioned our array in that singleton rather than as a global variable inside of main activity. Didn't change the way we're using it at all. Okay? And so your car keys, instead of being in your pocket, are now in this drawer where all of us have access to them. That's all we've done. They're still car keys. They still turn on just your car. All right? Make sense? So we haven't done anything to any of our logic except just moved where that variable lives, which then changed how we can access that variable. Now that means we can do this. Let's come over here to, actually I'm going to close our bad singleton. I'm actually going to delete our bad singleton because it's upsetting to me. So, just write singletons the way I write them and you'll be happy. Do you use singletons the way they write them? They probably make an argument for why it's better or something, but it's not. Or if it is, I'm not convinced of it. Okay, so in any case, let's go to our second screen. I'm just going to close the activity main XML so it's not in our way anymore. I'm also going to close hash central for right now. And we have our check value activity, this guy, and also our activity check values. So let's go ahead and give ourselves a view to the bloom filter here so we can see it. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to put in a large text right here. We'll spread it out and we'll call this guy, well, we're going to say bloom filter. Now, this is where we have to get a little creative. So now that we have more than one screen, we have to start taking that into consideration when we name our IDs. All right, because effectively, on my previous screen, this guy over here, activity main, my bloom filter lives right there. And I've named this answer TV. Okay? Well, let's say that I wanted the other guy to be answer TV as well. I have two separate objects with the same name. Can two of you have telephones with the same phone number? So we have a collision. So here, let me show you that. Go back here. Bloom filter. We'll name him answer TV. All right, we'll name him answer TV. And now what I'm going to do, actually let's run it. I'm just interested to see if it does something smart in the background, because I do want them to hold the same value. I don't think it will. But we're going to leave him named answer TV for now. So here, let's go ahead and add some values here. All right, so that seems to work. That seems to work. Now we'll go here. Okay, that still says bloom filter, so it's certainly not updating it there. But now I'm going to try to update it over here. So you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to go into bloom. I'm lost again. I want to be inside of check value activity, this guy. And we're going to go ahead and give ourselves access to that, that text view. So we're going to say private text view. Here we called it answer TV. And then inside here, we'll say this dot answer TV is equal to this dot find view by ID, r dot ID dot answer TV. Make sense? I have to tell it he's a text view.
Why do you always have to do that?
Because it comes out of here as a generic view. When I say find view by ID returns a view, a generic view. I'm trying to store it inside of a variable built for holding a specialty view called a text view. Even though I know that this guy is a text view. Problem is he's not a generic. So he comes out as a view and I need to turn him into what he actually is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say this dot answer TV dot set text, and the text is going to be equal to Bloom core dot the Bloom filter. That's the array I want to work with, and I'm going to say arrays dot what was it, to string of that guy. So I'll go ahead and set the text of that. Now what I predict is going to happen is, since this answer TV was added to our second, it was the second version of answer TV we have, when we do a find view by ID of answer TV, it's going to find the original one, the one from screen 1. So this is not going to link to answer TV that we see right here. It's not going to be that one. It's going to actually link to the one on the main page and try to overwrite that guy with whatever, which is fine. But bottom line is, it's not going to give us the behavior over here that we're looking for, because we can't have two text views both named answer TV and expect us to have the behavior that we want. One of them is going to be the one that we find, because the find view by ID does not give us an array of views. It gives us one view, the one it finds first that has that ID. All right, so let's just see if that's the case. So we should not currently see the Bloom filter on that second page. I don't think it'll crash. I just think we have two different variables, one on both activities, that point to the same widget on the main activity. So we'll put a value in here, check value. Ooh.
Okay, we go back. How about the name it, how about put it to a different text?
What to a different text?
I mean, for the second view, for the first.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
if it's-
Yeah, you don't want to do this. You want to have it say like Bob.
So we don't know if it's the same thing.
Yeah. He wants to do that. We're going to overwrite it.
Maybe the both changes.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Well, right. So we should be on the main page and have our Bloom filter view. Then we go to that second screen,
It will
and I set it to Bob.
It should be Bob.
Okay.
Bob.
So right now it looks like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Then I go to my next screen, and we set it to Bob.
and
Then when I hit
then
back, has the original been set to Bob, or is the original the other one?
Okay.
That's
No, you
interesting.
are wrong.
So we don't have to name it specially.
It's smarter.
It keeps track based on this particular layout.
Activity.
Every layer has
Yeah, it's identical.
Yeah.
So the R dot the find view by ID is it's found in the.
But it's in the context of this particular view. It's interesting. Very interesting, actually. Okay.
So does it impress you?
It does. But in this case right here, we probably don't want to call this answer TV anyways.
Yeah.
Even though we could. Even though we could.
It's different.
Yeah, we're going to call this Bloom filter TV. All right, so that's what that guy is going to be. Then we'll go back here to our check value. So this guy is going to be Bloom filter TV, and we're going to name this guy Bloom filter TV. filter TV. And then the text we're going to go ahead and set as the current array for our bloom filter. Okay. So now we should be viewing our that second screen, and it should have our bloom filter there. So now we want to go ahead and give ourselves a text box to type in a value, and then determine if that value is likely in our set or not, right? Okay, let's just go to that screen real quick. Currently nothing in there because it's the empty array. Yeah. Okay. So the idea is we'll add some things first, then we'll go over to that second screen and check. Okay. So we don't need activity main right now. We'll have activity check value. So we're going to do check value. We'll show our current bloom filter. Let's go ahead and, do we have any like little, so we want a person name guy again. All right, except I'm going to drop that. Actually, I need to put another thing on there first. So we're going to have another text label. Large text. Put it here first. We're going to say enter search string. All right, and I'm going to pop that guy right above him there, and then relatively drop him down there, and then I should be able to drop him down. All right, I can remove text from that, and we're going to call this guy search string et for edit text. All right, I'll stretch this out the whole screen like that, and we can set the gravity of that dude if we'd like to center, and that's going to set the gravity of the text. We'll center horizontal. So that'll set the gravity of any text we put in here to the middle. Make sense? This guy's a container, and we turned his gravity to center horizontally. Okay, so we'll have enter our search string. Now let's go ahead and throw a button out here. Button. This guy will be search. All right, and let's go ahead and put let's give ourselves access to these. So this guy is called search string et. Steal that for right now. And our button, we're going to call, we actually don't even need to give him a name, but we're going to definitely give him an on click, right? Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and create our edit text for this so we can read something in, and then create our function for the on click for this guy. That's going to be, let me close Bloom Core for a minute. Go in here. So now we're going to have a private edit text. That guy. And then we'll go ahead and we're going to say this dot search string et is equal to the edit text version of this dot find view by ID, and the ID is going to be r dot ID dot search string et. All right, so we have that guy, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to have our public void search button pressed. Takes in a view v as a parameter. Takes in a view v as a parameter.
No,
I programmed too quickly for Android Studio. It can't keep up. I had one of my consulting clients the other day tell me that I program like a Ferrari.
So we are programming like a tractor.
Like, do I go that quick?
No,
Doesn't seem like I go like freaky quick.
but you think quick.
Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
I don't know. I think
'Cause I'm way slower than I used to be. I
Uh,
feel like I'm more like his speed.
Alright.
Wonder what's your speed?
My wife and I just had this conversation last night. One of my clients was telling me about they had an IQ test, and I don't know, he said his IQ was like 107 or something like that. He thought that was like really high. That's not high.
That's
Yeah.
not hot.
Now 107 is kind of like maybe on the higher side of average.
That's true.
Yeah, I think about 100 to 110 is considered like an average adult
Normal,
IQ.
normal.
Yeah, I think like 111 to 120 something is considered superior, and then 140 is considered like super superior. Then 140 and above is considered genius. So I was telling my wife, I was like, now that I've gotten older, I wonder if my IQ is as high as it used to be.
Made a test?
Well, I've done it. I'm in Mensa, so my IQ is a 162, or at least was a 162. Well, I think we all kind of knew there was something not right with me.
Maybe it's not bad. Maybe it's bad.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I have a form of autism called Asperger's syndrome. So it's certain things I'm very good at, other things I'm functionally retarded at. So it all kind of balances out. But I was talking to her last night, and I'm like, I wonder if I took a test now. I have more experience now
I guess
than I had when I originally took it. Okay, so I'm probably better at, because the IQ tests are basically a lot of pattern matching and stuff like that. So I'm probably better at those things than I used to be in terms of capability. But does my mind move as quick as it used to? So how does that translate? Am I still the same? Am I higher? Am I like lower? Am I way lower? I would think I'm still significantly above 140. But in any case, I told the guy I was working with, he was like bragging about it. He thought it meant he was a genius. I told him to look it up. I said, I think a 106 means you can barely tie your left shoe. I think that's what that means. Well, my wife's a genius too. Yeah, my wife's like, when she last took a test, it was like 140 something.
Oh. So I do hope you can have a baby.
Not gonna happen. It's off the table.
Oh, so maybe you can let your cat to test the exactly.
All right, so we have our search button pressed. Let's go ahead and grab this guy. IQ tests are not realistic anyways.
Yeah.
There was a really interesting show I saw, and I think it was on H2 a couple years ago, that tried to determine intelligence. So they had people that you would typically consider to be smart, engineers, stuff like that. But then they had other folks that were like artists and musicians who, if you put me next to an artist, you might say that, okay, I'm the smart one, the artist doesn't have that same, but artists are smart in their own way, right? So what was very interesting about the show is they had them go through a whole bunch of different tests, like challenges for these people. And in the end, and it was probably kind of maybe human error, the people with the highest IQ, tested IQ, did end up winning, but they didn't win everything.
Okay.
So like the artist people, they had, in terms of tested IQ, much lower IQs. They had much more like average IQs than like the engineer guy. The engineer had a higher IQ. But the artist people did very, very well on a couple of their like tests, like spatial awareness and things like some different real life tests, not IQ tests, real life tests. They did very well compared to the higher IQ people. So more than likely, the idea was that the reason the engineer guy ended up winning was probably because the tests were skewed towards those kind of proficiencies. But in the end, the kind of the punchline was that high IQ does not mean you're smart. Okay, because there's all sorts of different intelligences, right? Yeah, certain problems, the people who had much more pedestrian IQs were far more capable of doing. So that kind of falls into that category of the kind of the world takes all kinds, right? There's no such thing as somebody who's smarter than somebody else. We all have our talents. It's kind of more along the lines of making sure you fall into the bucket where your talents can shine, right?
Yeah.
Don't be a brain surgeon if you have shaky hands. All right, that type of thing. All right, so let's go ahead and grab this guy right here for our on click, and we'll go ahead and set him up in here. Okay, and then what we want to do is we want to read in whatever this string is, and we want to go ahead and get its hash value, right? And then we're going to ask our Bloom filter if he's in if there's a 1 there, and if there is, we want to say true. All right, so let's go ahead and give ourselves a second large text for our answer. And we'll set his gravity. Yeah, I could have, but I didn't. Center horizontal. And then let's give him, can we give him a color? Here we have font family. Yeah, I don't want that. I want font feature setting maybe. No, I want a font color. Oh, foreground. Red text. Is that going to do it? I thought that would give me... Oh. I still thought it was going to give it to me, but... There we go. Oh, I know. That's the foreground, but I thought that was going to do it for the text. Nailed it. Haha. All right. So this guy's going to, we're going to say result for right now. And we're going to call this guy result TV for text view. All right, so that's where we're going to put our answer. Okay, so let's go back into our check value activity and give ourselves access to that dude. So we'll say private text view result TV. And we'll say this dot result TV is equal to the text view version of this dot find view by ID of r dot ID dot result TV. All right, so then when our search button is pressed, we're going to go ahead and grab the current text. All right, so, and then we're going to send it into our hash, right? So we're going to go ahead and say, what do we call it, hash core? No, hash central. Hash central dot string hash, and we pass this guy the string, which is going to be this dot search string et dot toString. No, get text dot toString. And we want a maximum value of 16. Okay, so we have that value. And so let's just get val and store it real quick. So we have that value. And then we'll ask the question, if bloomcore dot the bloom filter at bucket val is equal to a 1, then we'll say this dot result TV dot set text to found or something like that. Ooh. Well, let's just set it to true.
Yeah.
else this dot result TV dot set text is false. Okay. All right, so let's do cat, dog, elephant. We'll go check value. So we'll do cow. And that said false, so that we have to, yeah, I see it false. And then we'll do cat, it's true, dog, is, yeah, true, meow. Oh, it thinks meow is there. It thinks meow is there.
Because cat is there.
Peacock is false. All right, so we did get one false positive out of it, right? But in general, that pretty much does what we wanted to do. Woo, hello.
Who knows? We haven't tested. I don't think it's so smart.
All right, well, whatever. All right, good enough? Seems to do what it should be doing. So let's do, where's our version control on here? Enable version control integration. Git. All right. And then we want to commit changes. All right. And then we want to import into version control. So we're going to create a share project on GitHub, right? And Bloom filter Android. And is this going to ask me for my credentials?
Maybe not.
Or does it just remember from before?
Maybe.
Could remember.
Yep, Bloom filter Android. Okay. All right, so let's start a new project now for our homework. And we're going to call this guy, so let me kill off this guy. And we're going to create a new Android Studio project. And we're going to call this guy JSON Builder. Okay. And same thing as before. Let's leave all those settings. And we'll do an empty activity. Seem to like that. Seem to do what we wanted to do. So we'll do next. And then we're going to, instead of main activity, we're going to call this guy build JSON object activity. Build JSON object activity. Nailed it. All right, so we'll do that. All right, so for starters, does anybody in here not know what JSON is? A couple of you? Okay, so let's look at this. So for example, let's start off with something like this. Let's say I have an object. So a JSON is like XML. It's a way of representing data from an object in text format. Okay? And JSON is the way that applications send information to each other. So for example, if I have in Java a fraction object, okay? A fraction object is going to have probably an int numerator, an int denominator, something like that. If I had, if I wanted to see the JSON equivalent of that, it would look something like this. If I wanted to represent a fraction object, actually let's do this real quick. In JSON, it would probably look like this. Numerator is equal to, let's say it's 1. Denominator is equal to 2. That is the JSON representation of a fraction. All right. Now, if we go a little bit more historic, the guy that came before JSON was XML. And so we would have XML, the equivalent XML would look like this. Something like that. All right. So in either case, we're representing a 1 and a 2. This is the data we're representing. A 1 here and a 2 here, where a 1 is associated with the numerator and a 2 is associated with the denominator. And we're representing those guys in all of this text. So we're providing structure to it. So JSON is a data structure for representing name-value pairs, representing information. Okay. XML is a data structure for representing information as well, although XML is much more verbose. We have a lot more text here for XML. So we're going to call JSON the upgrade to XML. Now, but JSON supports several different kinds of values. So let me just kind of expand this out here for us. So let's call this guy a string value. So that's one kind of value JSON can hold. JSON can also hold a number value. So that's like what I have right there. JSON can also hold a object value, where an object value is actually another JSON object. So that guy might be A1, B2, something like that. So that's an object value. Or it can hold an array value, where an array value looks like this, and it's a collection of objects. Something like that. Make sense? Okay, so this is kind of a microcosm of what JSON can look like. So we have everything in here is a name value pair. So notice the name is always a string. String value, number value, object value, array value, they're all strings. Every one of these, the name is a string. Okay? But the values change. Sometimes the value is a string. Sometimes the value is a number. Sometimes the value is another JSON object, where a JSON object is this guy, right? The same dude we do. So that's what I was getting at earlier, where if you're building a value that's of type JSON object, go ahead and launch your activity that knows how to build a JSON object. Make sense? And sometimes it's an array. What's an array? It's a collection of JSON objects. Okay? So what every JSON string is going to be one object. So the simplest form of a JSON string is going to look like this. That is a JSON object that has 0 name value pairs in it. Okay? So building a JSON object is going to start off like this. What your app is going to do is it's going to allow you to go through and add name value pairs, and then ultimately export that into a string that looks like this. All right, so in my app, I should be able to do something like, let's call this a JSON app. I should be able to say add name val pair. Then it's going to ask me, what is the name? So I'll probably have a text box to put the name into. And then what is the value type? If string, read in the string. If number, read in the number. If object, take them to the activity that knows how to build an object. If array, take them to the activity that knows how to build an array. Make sense? All right, so let's kind of start the structure for this guy. So here's our initial layout here. Okay, let's go ahead and give ourselves a theme. We'll go that device default theme. That seemed to work out all right. Okay, so what we're going to have in here is going to be a JSON object itself, which is what we're in right here. So this is, let's just go ahead. I'm going to take this out. We'll make a bigger one. Okay, this guy is going to be build JSON object. That's what that guy's going to do. All right, and we'll go ahead and set his gravity for that container to be center horizontally. Kind of starting to understand how gravity works? Okay. So that's what this guy's going to do. So inside here, we want to be able to add a object. Add a object. So what does it mean to add an object to our JSON object? I'm sorry, add a name value pair, rather, to our JSON object. That's going to mean, let's have a button here. Add name value pair. All right, so that's the type of thing we might want to do, right? Okay, and when we add a name value pair, it's going to take us to a screen for entering that name value pair. All right, but now just so we don't forget, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to throw in a table view, or a list view rather. This guy. Right? So this guy is going to hold our name value pairs for this particular JSON object. All right? So every JSON object is going to know about the name value pairs that are in it. So let's kind of fill this out so you have that as a starting point. Okay? So we're going to go into layout. We're going to create a new do new XML. I know last time we did the new layout resource file, but I thought we had all right, we'll just do it the way we did it before. So we'll create a layout resource file, and this guy is going to be not a linear layout. Instead, can we do it from over here? You see, they used to give us like a choice for what we put here for our root element. But it doesn't look like I have to start typing it. So list view list item. Let me cancel this because there's an easier way to do what we're trying to do here. All right, let's just try a layout XML file. Root tag. No, that's not any better. Okay. So let me just get the name of it here so I don't forget it. This guy is called a table row. Okay. So we'll create a new layout resource, and this guy is going to be a simple table row, and he's going to be based on a table row. And we'll hit OK. So there's our simple table row here, and then we'll go ahead and throw our text out there. Oh, we need to give this guy an app theme, device default. And we'll have him go all the way across. Okay. Yeah, we'll keep it simple. So we're going to call this guy row text is going to be the ID for him. Okay. So that's our simple table row. And then let's just go ahead and get this guy filled out with stuff here. So let's go into our JSON activity. Actually, did we give a name to this dude yet? I'm going to choose none for choice because we're not actually clicking on them. So let's give this guy an ID. So we're going to call this just call it the list view. All right, so we have that, and we have our build JSON object. We don't need anything there. We're going to have an action for this, but really we're going to add name value pairs, and that's going to get added here. Okay. So let's just get this guy filled up with some stuff for a few minutes, kind of refreshing what we did a little bit earlier. So let's give ourselves these variables. Now, we want each of our JSON object activities to maintain his own list of name value pairs. We don't want to use the singleton for each of these guys individually because we might have an object inside of an object inside of an object, and we don't want those guys filling up the same global array. We want each of our JSON object activities to have their own list, and them all become part of the global list. Okay, so this is going to be part of what this assignment is it's understanding how you're going to build this data structure that essentially is an Android app. All right, so we're going to create a private, what is it, list view? All right, and this guy is going to be called the list view. Right here. And then we're also going to have a private array adapter of type string. And we're going to call this the array adapter. Again, both of these are owned by this particular instance of the build JSON object activity. Make sense? If I have 5 of these guys, if I've created intents and launched 5 versions of this build JSON object activity, I have 5 copies of list view. I have 5 copies of array adapter. Each one of them has their own. Make sense? That way, when one object is adding numerator equals 2, that doesn't affect any of the other objects. Just this guy right here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and just for the sake of making sure it shows up on the screen, let's go ahead and get these guys set up. So list view, oh, I called it the list view, right? the list view is equal to the list view version of this dot find view by ID r dot ID dot the list view, and this dot the array adapter is equal to, ooh, that's not going to be what I'm doing with that guy. Let's just give myself a quick little string array. String array vals is equal to a new string array of 100 for oh, let's just do this. Array dot fill vals with woot 100 woots. All right. So now that guy's filled up, and then we'll say this dot the array adapter is equal to a new array adapter of type string, and I'm going to pass this guy a layout resource, the int resource, and then the objects. So this is going to be r dot layout dot simple table row, and then r dot id dot row text, and then vals. Oh, does it also take a this? Took a context. And then we'll say this dot the list view is equal to dot set adapter to this dot the array adapter. All right, so this guy should just have 100 woots in it for right now. Let's just test that real quick. Use the same device. Is it hot in here? Not really. All right. No, I feel like I have a fever or something. It's fine. I'm not dying or anything. I'm still trying to debug what's wrong with me. For those of you who showed up late, I went home earlier today. I canceled my afternoon class, and I basically slept for 6 hours this afternoon, which is not like me. I usually keep a very, very busy schedule. Like meeting after meeting after meeting. All right, so there's all our woots. It's in there, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's have our add name value pair take us to another screen that's going to take in a name and then also take in a type of value. But for right now, I'm going to make it simple values because I'll do the simple part of the assignment for you, okay? So we'll go ahead and let's build a second. Okay, so I want to go ahead and I'm going to create a, let's call it create name value activity. So we're going to create a new activity. He's going to be an empty activity. And we're going to call this guy create name value activity. All right, we'll have a generate the layout file, but he's not going to be the launcher activity. So finish that. Okay, and then we can go in here and let's go ahead and let's build this guy. We'll set his theme equal to device default. All right, and we'll do that to make that bigger. That's the way you like it, right? All right, so then we'll go ahead and for right now, we're going to assume it's always a name value string. All right, we'll make the simple version. All of our name value pairs are string values. Name is a string, value is a string. You'll have to do the more complex for your assignment. All right, so we'll go ahead and we're going to throw a large text out here. Okay. And this will be enter name. And let's go ahead and give that guy some gravity. All right, then we're gonna do some text. So we'll use that person name box here, this guy. And we'll give him some gravity. And we'll call this guy name edit t, et. All right. Then we're going to do enter value. All right, and this guy is going to be value et. I'm just going to type value in there, make sure it gets centered. Yep. Okay. So those are our two pieces of information we're reading in right now, right? And I think actually I can do this. Ooh. Oh, we're just going to leave well enough alone. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a button. Here's our button. And we'll have this one say save. And I'm going to give us another button as well. Have this one say cancel. All right, and then let's give ourselves a linear layout right here, and then put our two buttons inside of that guy. All right, and then drag that layout down like, oops. Oh, come on. We're center horizontally in there. And then we'll go ahead and have the height wrap the content. There we go. All right. Nailed it. All right. So we're going to go ahead and have a that button from the first screen launch this guy. And then I'm going to make the cancel button work as well. Oh, actually, hold on. No, we don't need a cancel button because we have a back button built in. Cancel button doesn't make any sense.
Only it means clear.
Yeah.
Clear, yeah.
Nah, we're not giving a clear button. This is good enough. A lot of work for that linear layout when I didn't even need it. All right. So in any case, let's go ahead and give ourselves first of all the button on the main screen that gets us here. So that's this guy. So we'll go ahead and do a public void. What is it? Add name value pair button clicked. Add name value pair button pressed. And this guy will take in a view V. And what is he going to do? He's going to create an intent called I, and this is going to be a new intent. And this guy is going to take in a context and a class. So this dot, or this comma, and then create name value activity class. That's where we're going with it. And then we'll say this dot start activity, passing it I. That'll get us over there. Okay. So let's make sure that's the case. And remind me at the end here in a few minutes that I want to give you, I'll put it up on GitHub and I'll give you the project link so you can check it out to your machine and work with that. So here's this guy. We'll do add name value. Oh, I never set the on click. I wrote this beautiful function and never told my button that he's supposed to call it. All right, now we should be good to go. That'll go away in a second. It's still launching. All right, so that takes us over to this screen. We can enter in whatever. When we hit save, we want to go back to the screen we're adding stuff for. All right, so I'm going to show you the little trick how I would do this. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build a new class. I'm going to build our singleton, and we're going to call this guy JSON core. Good enough? I don't want to call it that. Let's call this guy builder core. That sounds cooler. Builder core. Oh, yeah. All right, so this guy, he's going to keep track of the activity. So he's going to keep track of a bunch of things probably as we keep building the app. But in our case here, since I'm on our main activity, I'm on this screen right here. Let's go back. So I'm on this screen right here, and I say, oh, I want to add a brand new activity, or a brand new name value pair rather. I want to add a brand new name value pair. How do I do that? I click here, which then takes me over to that screen, okay, the screen for adding the new value. What I'm going to do is when I click this, I'm going to let the singleton know that this screen, this activity, have requested another activity go ahead and retrieve a name value pair for me. All right, so I'm going to remember myself up in the cloud. Then when I type in these two things and I hit save, I'll tell the activity up in the cloud, I've done what you've asked. Here you go. Okay, you'll see how this works. So in our builder core, we're going to have a static activity, and this guy is going to be called current. Actually, it's not going to be a normal activity. It's going to be a build JSON object activity. Build JSON object activity. Current build JSON object activity. Okay, we're going to have that guy up there. And now when we hit that button to go over to that new screen, before we actually go to that screen, we're going to go ahead and say builder core dot current build JSON object activity is equal to myself. This. So I'm going to let him know that I'm about to ask somebody else to go get a name value pair for me. So you remember who I am. That way he can let you know those values. Okay? Similarly, we're going to dump our array thing there real quick. We're no longer going to create it with an array. It's going to be empty initially. All right, but our array adapter is still up there. So what I'm going to do for right now, just since we only have a few minutes left, is I'm going to say public void add name value pair, and this guy's just going to take in a, well actually let's have him take in a string name and a string value. And what he'll do is he'll say this dot the array adapter dot add, and the add what we're going to add is name concatenated with maybe a colon. Let's just do a colon concatenated with value. All right, so now this activity knows how to have somebody else ask him to add a name value pair to his array adapter. Okay? And who's going to do that? Well, over here in our other dude, this guy right here, we need to go ahead and create our button. So first we need to have access to those couple of variables. So this guy is called name ET and the other one's called value ET. So let's give ourselves access to those. So we'll have private edit text name ET, private edit text value ET. We'll set those guys up in here. So we'll say this dot name ET is equal to the edit text version of this dot find view by ID r dot ID dot name ET. This dot value ET is equal to the edit text version of this dot find view by ID r dot ID dot value ET, like that. Then we'll go ahead and give ourselves a button. So we'll have a public void save button pressed view v view v, and then what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to say builder core dot current activity dot add name value pair. What name value pair? This dot name ET dot get text dot toString and this dot value ET dot get text dot toString. We'll pass those two things to that dude who then added it to his adapter. And then we want to go ahead and go back to the previous screen. So I think it's, what is it, this dot get intent dot, is it like dismiss? Well, since we're basically out of time, we'll just go back with the back button for right now. So that'll be save button pressed. Actually, just give me 30 seconds. Android programmatically back button. Is it just this dot on back pressed? Yeah, I think that'll do it. So we'll call the back button. So that'll save it. It'll let the guy up there know. He'll add it. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so let's make sure that that currently works. Okay, so we'll add name value pair. We'll have A is equal to 5 and hit save. Didn't seem to go back, but that should now be back. Row. Oh, I don't think that we put this in there yet. I'm pretty sure the code I wrote worked. So we need to tell the save button what he needs to do.
Go back.
We just never gave an on-click. It didn't do any of it. There we go. There we go. He should behave a little bit better now. add name value pair. We'll have an A and a 5. Hit save. There's our A5. We'll have a B and a 6. We'll hit save. There's our B6. So on and so forth. Okay. And then finally, will you guys give me an extra 2 minutes here to give you a little bit more for your homework?
Take forever.
So I'm going to do this. So this is for adding a name value pair. Now let's go ahead and do an export or generate JSON. Let's do that guy. So let's hide this, hide this. So that guy's currently that size. So let's just go ahead and give ourselves another button there on the bottom. Ruh-roh. So button 3, there's that guy, there's that guy. But this guy, we don't want his height. We want his height to be, can we do unset? No, I think we want it to fill parent, which should then allow us to put a dude underneath. There we go. So this button is going to be called generate JSON. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have another screen, another activity here. New activity, empty activity. And this is going to be generate JSON activity. Like this activity. All right, so this is going to be a brand new little dude here. All right, and we'll give this guy a theme. He's going to be our device default. And then we're going to have him just have a multi-line text in here. And I think these guys might scroll by default. If not, we'll have to mess with it a little bit. But let's give this guy a name. So we're going to call this guy the JSON ET. All right, that's ultimately what we want to write out to. Okay. So when we do that, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and generate the JSON, and right now we'll do that up in the cloud piece. So let's do this. We're going to give ourselves programmatic access to the JSON ET. So we're going to have a private edit text, the JSON ET. And we'll say this dot the JSON ET is equal to the edit text version of this dot find view by ID r dot ID dot the JSON ET. Okay, and then we're going to actually set him equal to the JSON text that's going to be inside of our builder core that we're going to have to build. So builder core is going to also have a static string, the JSON, and this guy will start off as the empty string. Okay, actually he can start off like this just so you can see how it works. All right, and then we'll go ahead and have this guy set this dot the JSON dot set text equal to builder core dot the JSON. So it should show the empty list right now. Just show that to you. Well, actually, I have no way of getting to the screen yet. All right, so now let's go back here. So we're going to do a public void generate JSON button pressed view v. Okay, and this guy's going to go ahead and he's going to generate the JSON document for us. All right, so right now let's just do this real quick. So I'm going to say intent I is equal to new intent this comma, and we're going to go to generate JSON activity dot class, and then this dot start activity I. So that should take us there, and let's go ahead and hook up that guy on the on click. So that is activity, no, not that guy. Not that guy, this guy. This guy's on click. That. All right, so now he should take us to that next screen. That next screen now should just show us the empty JSON, right? And we'll write that last little piece. Should only take a minute. See it work first. So now it's no matter how many name value pairs we enter, it's still going to always just take us to the screen that shows the empty guy. So I can put whatever I want in here, but when I say generate JSON, it should take me to this screen. It just shows me the shows me the empty guy right now. So what I need to do is I need to actually generate the JSON. Let me go here to, I'm just going to set the gravity on this guy to top, and we'll make it, actually I don't even have to do left justified, that's fine. So top like that. I'm not going to worry about anything else. So now in here, when we do our build JSON object, when we do this, before we actually show it, we have to go ahead and generate that JSON. So create the JSON string. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say string answer is equal to the opening curly brace. And I'm going to actually go ahead and put a \n in there for a carriage return. That'll make sense here in a second. Then I'll say answer is equal to plus equals rather, the closing curly brace. Then in the middle, we want to go through every single string that's in our array list. So we're going to say for string s in this dot the array adapter dot get, oh, can't do it that way. I have to just do it within a normal loop. Int I is equal to 0, I is less than this dot the array adapter dot get count, I plus plus. And for each thing here, what am I going to do? I'm going to grab the current string. So we'll say string cur is equal to this dot the array adapter dot get item at position I. That's going to get me a string. And then I'm going to go, actually, let's create a string array here called parts. And I'll go ahead and split that guy on the colon, because that's how I stored it. I stored it with name, colon, value. Yeah. So I'll split it on the colon, and then what I'll go ahead and do is we'll add to our answer plus equals. I'll just put a little tab in there to indent it a little bit. Concatenated with single quote, concatenated with parts at bucket 0, concatenated with another single quote followed by a colon, or a double quote rather, followed by a colon. I can even put a space after that. Concatenated with, and this could be another double quote there, concatenated with parts at bucket 1, concatenated with the double quote and then a carriage return. We'll go ahead and always put commas in there. Actually, before we do the carriage return, let's just do it this way, like that. Then we'll ask if I is equal to this dot the array adapter dot get count minus 1. Let's see if it's not equal to that. If this is not our last time through the loop, then I'll say answer plus equals comma carriage return. Else answer plus equals just carriage return. Because we don't have a comma for the very last one. Then we'll exit the loop, we'll come out here. So this is going to basically go through our entire array adapter and turn it into a JSON string. All right, so after I've done that, then I can say, what do we call it? Builder core dot the JSON is equal to answer. And then we can go to the next screen. So let's go ahead and just put in a couple of name value pairs, make sure this works, and we'll say we're good, and I'll put it up to GitHub. But this gives you an idea on what the app should do. This works for just name value pairs where the values are always strings. This does not work for numbers yet. This does not work when the value is an object. This does not work if the value is an array. Okay, so there's still plenty of work for you guys to do. So just so you knew that, I didn't do all of it for you. I didn't want you to feel bad. So we'll say A is 5, save that. We'll add another one. We'll say B is 7. We'll save that. We'll hit generate JSON, and there's our A is 5, B is 7. Make sense? So kind of get what you should be doing for the homework. So if you're not familiar with JSON, do a search for, read up on JSON first, just so you make sure you understand JSON. I've pretty much shown you how it works, but that's the punchline. So let's go ahead and let me just make sure we get it up on version control. We're going to do this with Git. And then we'll go ahead and export it into GitHub. And we're going to call this JSON Builder Android. We'll share that. Should be up there now. Go back here. Oh, there it is. There it was. All right, so I'll put this up on your assignment. See, wasn't it nice that I started the project for you?
That helps.
All right, this is 537.
Yes.
All right, so this is week 6. So we have next week and the week after, right? Okay, gotcha. So all right. Questions, comments, concerns, bribes?
See you next week.
Say, I did some homework. I did some of your homework for you because of the Portillos.
Where did you get those